Women in Leadership, brought to you by HeronCode, the management consultancy for what happens next. For more information, you can visit HeronCode.com. Welcome to HeronCode's Women in Leadership podcast, joined by another phenomenal female. I want to welcome you with all my might, because just you entering a room is just, you light it up. Welcome to Farah Zafar. How are you?
Thank you so much. That's so kind. You know what? That's just about energy, right? You just want to bring the energy to everything that you do. So I'm very grateful to be here. Thank you to HeronCode. Thank you to you. It's an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
And it's my third podcast. Yeah. It's my first podcast. Like, hey, and I'm doing it with you. How amazing is that?
It's an honor. Really, really is.
Thank you
now,
so much.
Our listeners would have already heard who you are and what you've really brought to this world and your role and everything that you've achieved. I would love to hear from you in your own words, because, you know, it's like nowadays people can look at everyone's Instagram bio, their LinkedIn, and you have your title, so to say.
Yeah.
But how would you best describe yourself and who you are and the roles you play?
Wow, that's a question. Do you know what? It's just been a journey and an evolution to working really hard and to be convicted to a profession to perform at the highest. When I was young growing up, it was all about, my father always said, be the hardest working person in the room. And that's really what I went away with. And I think growing up, affection or love was only given on performance. And I think that was really indicative. I think the first time that my father told me I was pretty, I was 32 at my youngest brother's wedding. And so growing up, it was all about performance. It was not being a female. It was not being, trying to be pretty or trying to convey a certain image. And, we're in this world right now where it's all about image, right? It was literally about working hard, having a dream. The dream was to be a lawyer that was so good that I did no longer have to conform to a society pressure as to what that would entail, hence the Rockstar. But no, it was just hard work. It was dedication. It was focus. It was hard work. It was sacrifice. It was go through adversity and embrace adversity. And it was hard. I mean, people look at you when you're successful and they think, oh, it must be so easy. I mean, my journey has been so not easy. I mean, I came from a household in the UK. My dad gave me three options. It was doctor, dentist, lawyer. My older brother is a dentist. I'm a lawyer. My younger brother kind of broke the mold, but is incredibly successful in what he does. And I remember LA Law was out at that time, and I was like, oh, I think I could do shoulder pads and pig hair and high heels. Okay, we do lawyer. I'm like, okay, let's roll. Did I expect to get here where I was? No way. Did I expect to be on the journey that I am on right now? No way. But I think it comes from this, this fervent force that my parents gave me, that hard work is success and there's no backing down from it, because there's no option, right? When you come from nothing, you know what nothing feels like. And so you don't have a choice. And so to navigate yourself through a journey, has been challenging in its own right. But it's been a journey that I've been very proud of, how you handle that.
And you spoke about conforming to society, something that you said that you were just completely not wanting to do, not wanting to even entertain, I guess.
Yeah.
What was that society that you were kind of surrounded in and that you were kind of, I guess, essentially what most people were conditioned to be a part of?
Well, I think it started, I come from a very conservative, humble household. So you're kind of predicated on respect and honor and loyalty and respect to your family. So that was installed in me. And then as you go through life, you have these different components that try to stretch that. And it really is up to you whether you hold true to who you are or whether you expand and, and conform. So I think, a couple of things. for example, in corporate, corporate is savage. Anybody that thinks that corporate is not savage, it's savage. It's savage when you're low and it's savage when you're high, right? There's political games, there's manipulation, there's, being underhand. And for me, what I needed to navigate was really to be instilled by core corporate values that my father had taught me. And I needed to respect that, respect, loyalty, honor, not playing the political game, which as you go up through the corporate ladder becomes harder and harder because you do need to do that to succeed. But I was fervent in the belief that if you would just walk up the ladder as you were meant to walk up the ladder and just work hard and concentrate and focus, then once you got up the ladder, and you didn't take the escalator, of course, that nobody would be able to push you down. And I think that was the strength of determination. When I came, I worked in a, I wanted to be a lawyer, obviously. My dad gave me 3 options. LA law defined it. But, in the UK, you couldn't be a lawyer unless you got a training contract. So I went through like 532 applications. So then you understand rejection. Mm-hmm. And you understand rejection not because you didn't get your grades, or because you understand rejection because I guess at that point there was, we're talking a long time ago. I know I'm only 27, but, at that time there was 11% of all ethnic minorities in the UK would get a training contract. And you think you've worked hard and you've nailed your grades and everything. And, 532 rejections is a lot. 533, I end up having this interview with this guy. And he's like, oh, so we've got a criminal law position available. And I always kind of knew I wanted to be a corporate lawyer. But I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Great, let's do this. And I got literally thrown into criminal law. My training contract was hard because they were off the impression, because I was kind of born and raised in Surrey, never went to private school, did not have a privileged upbringing, understood hunger, understood, what you had to do to survive, but they still had this perception of me because I spoke well that they had to break me. And I had the hardest time, but, because they were just all in that position to break me. So they would give me criminal cases. And I think I had a glorified perception of the judicial system in the UK. It's revered. We all love it. It's revered. It's probably the most, kind of amazing judicial system in the world. And then I started, being the defendant to these criminal cases. And I believed in judicial right and wrong. I believed in innocent and guilt. And then when it comes down to it, I got everybody that I thought was guilty free, and had one case, and it was this teenage kid that was innocent. And I got a hung jury. And I was like, what? And it was kind of that monumental time in your life where you understand that judicial systems across the world are not about innocent and guilt. It has so many factors. Are you the best lawyer? What is the jury makeup? What is the media or social impact at that time, and everything else that affects that, guilty or innocent verdict. And that really shattered me to the core, because suddenly, you want to be a lawyer and you want to profess and you want to do guilt or innocent, and it was heartbreaking. At which time I decided I wanted to be a corporate lawyer, which I got to in the end. But all that is to say is that, it's about absolute determination and hard work. And, when you come from a family that, you don't have anything, there's really nothing to lose, right? Everything is up, right? So no matter how bad you treat me, it's like up. It shows you resilience. It shows you adversity. It makes you become something. So, I embraced the journey. And then I finally landed, I trained, I got Supreme Court qualified, I won every case. And then I kind of thought I was in my dream job. I was working in Mayfair as a corporate commercial lawyer, and I remember the partner called me to his office and he said, you will never amount to anything in your life. And, having gone through this kind of abusive environment at training and then thinking I've got my dream job and having somebody that I respect, as a partner of this firm, it really took me back. And then I thought, you know what? No, I'm just going to prove this wrong. And then, life is this funny, crazy thing, right? Because I was literally on my desk and I get a phone call and they say, you've been headhunted for a job in Dubai. And I'm like, I don't even know where Dubai is, right? Like, where is this place? And I thought I was being super smart because now I think I'm a corporate lawyer. So I'm like, oh, that's good. We want to fly you out on Friday to do the interviews. And I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? I want to negotiate my package before I thought I was so smart. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, damn, okay. So I come out to Dubai and I do my interview. And they say, you're going to meet a Sheikh called Sheikh Mohammed. And I didn't know who Sheikh Mohammed was. I thought it was a Sheikh called Mohammed. And, in the UK, I was a lot of my clients were the ruling families of like Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. And I remember when I first met him and he asked me a really interesting question, like the smartest question everybody's ever asked me. He said, what is the difference between a barrister, a solicitor, and an avocado? And I was like, damn, that's smart, And then I answered that question and he said, okay, make sure, he said to the chairman, make sure she stays here for more than 1 year because then she will not leave. And here we are 22 years later, I'm still here.
He was right.
He was right. Dubai has been an amazing place, but I guess the fundamental for that in terms of a life lesson is when an opportunity is given to you and you take it, it can literally transform the entire trajectory of your journey. And that was really what that opportunity did for me. So I don't think I answered your question, but
no, you did absolutely, and then some.
Okay.
I wanna go back to where you spoke about mental resilience because
yes.
So many men or women listening right now are at that stage in their career. No matter how old you are, people are now, especially after the pandemic, turning to entrepreneurship and giving up that job that they didn't like, they weren't happy at. What you've overcome and the people that you've come across, I mean, that example that you came of that guy, that shareholder, or what he said to you, you're never going to come of anything. Yeah. It takes a lot to bat that off, to create a shield around you to continue to keep going. How did you do that, essentially?
So that was nothing, actually. For some reason, and I've really tried to look back on why, I didn't know whether it was because growing up, it was this whole thing about you have to work hard for your money, right? There was that ingrained, you watch your parents, they work 24/7. You come from this, an amazing background. I'm not saying that, but one that hasn't got wealth or abundance in it, right? And so you see that, and I think it resonates a part of you. So for me, it was like work hard, be the hardest working person in the room, and then you get to being successful. But I think that the work hard became a part of my identity. So actually, every role that I've been in for the last 22 years, I hate to say it, but it's true, has been an incredible test of my resilience and the ability to go through it. It's been hard. It's been hard. I mean, now we're in an environment where we talk about mental health, we talk about abuse, we talk about the Me Too movement, we talk about all of that. But when I was growing up, you didn't have that. So you just, find the best way to get through this on the premise that if you can get through this, then you're going to be okay. So, and that's when I talk about the ladder, right? It's like, when you come from nothing, and you get to the first ladder and you get to the second step and the third step and the fourth step, anybody across that journey is going to put you down. They sabotage you. It's political. And for me, I just wanted to really stay true to who I was because I have an immense amount of respect for my father. And he always said, never compromise integrity. And I think I could have got up the ladder faster, to be honest. But I didn't want to play that game. So it was harder, it was longer. You talk about what it takes to have resilience, I think is the question. I think it's this overwhelming, inner strength that tells you that you cannot give up, because looking down is not an option. The only option is to just keep on going. And so, I've experienced, everybody thinks it's easy, right? They look at me like, oh, it's so easy. No, I'm sorry. It has not been easy. You talk about who you are, right? And what you bring. Nobody has ever helped me. Nobody has helped me in any form or space. It has just been an absolute, pledge to my parents to build a better life for all of us that just kept me going. And it's resilience. It's about the power of your mind. It's about bringing a shield around you and it was this whole thing about, okay, if you're going to try and attack me, you're going to try and bring me down, that's okay. Because adversity and resilience is only going to make me go higher. And I think that's it. It's do whatever you want to bring me down, but my resilience is going to conquer in the end. And it's strange that you say that, because I was looking back at career, and it has been a really rough road. It has not been easy, but it's about resilience and embracing everything that negative that happens in your life and trying to use it as, your initial strength to help you get up that ladder. That's all I can say. It was resilience.
And you spoke about, no one helped you along the way.
No.
So are you, in terms of your journey, how was it? Because people talk about the circle around you, and they're saying that you are the average of the closest 5 people around you. What was that for you, doing what you do? I imagine you didn't even have time to breathe. But how important is it for people to have the right support system around them? You had such great parents, you had such great siblings. A lot of people don't have that. Friends essentially, especially here in Dubai, friends become family.
Yes.
So how important is it for people to focus on that and really understand how pivotal that is towards their success?
It is so important, but you have to appreciate that when I came here 22 years ago, I didn't know anybody in Dubai, right? And I was probably one of a handful of female executives in a role that I was in. I remember the first day that I arrived, I thought that I would meet friends and people in my workspace, because that's what you expect. And there was a memo that we issued, and it said, nobody's meant to come into my office, exchange pleasantries, or approach me. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I meant to make any friends? And I didn't for like 3 years. But so having this ecosystem of friends and family is so important. But also, I moved here when I was fairly young, and there wasn't that society or that element of Dubai that you have now. So really, it was about independence and resilience within oneself and your brain, and having faith, which was very important to me, that allowed you to kind of succeed. But now I'm in this different ecosystem where, I'm building something that I'm very passionate about. I'm surrounded by people that love me and respect me, and we're on this journey together. And it's a totally different feeling. But moving up in the world through my corporate career has been incredibly lonely, I have to say.
And I want to go into that into the law, the side of element of your career, because, back when you were studying, you mentioned this a couple of times now, things were a lot more different than they are now. We're living in a world where resources are just, they're in abundance, social media, the internet, whatnot, networking so much easier. By one click, you can speak to someone, How is it, do you think it's necessarily easier nowadays to become a lawyer and do what you do?
I wouldn't want to, comment on anybody else's journey. But I think it's easier. You have resources at a click of, Google is amazing, right? Yeah. You don't know how to draft a contract, you click it, it gives you a precedent. You want to look at law, it's there. It's an easier journey. Do you have other, problems that arise? Yeah, absolutely. But, the way that technology has impacted, careers and performance and communities has been incredible. So yeah, I think it's easier.
How has technology changed the law industry in particular? Has it impacted in any way, in particular to what you do?
Well, in particular to what I did. Because I'm no longer a lawyer. I mean, I'll always be a lawyer at heart, but no longer pursuing that. I think the legal profession was very slow in adopting technology, apart from having, apps that did case law for you or precedent systems for contracts. The legal profession has been fairly slow in adopting kind of AI and more conducive technology to performance. But there's just a lot more resources available. But I think the law in particular does require a certain personality and a certain one-to-one, even though they say that law is going to replace by an AI that can tell you what your predicated chances are of success. I don't know. I mean, but the law profession as a whole has taken a little bit more time to adopt to technology than any other sector, I do believe.
And let's talk about what you're doing now, because that is so exciting what you're doing. You are at the forefront and you are really molding something phenomenal for women in technology as a whole. Could you tell the listeners what it is that you're doing?
So before I tell the listeners what it is, maybe I could explain the journey.
Sure, absolutely.
The only thing I ever wanted to do in my life was to be a successful lawyer. And I believed that that was my life's mission, and worked really hard at it, really, defined my craft, learned every surrounding aspect of it. And then you get to a stage where, and I had the privilege of working for some of the leading visionaries in the Middle East and CEOs, and I'm a great observer. I think it happens when you have no friends, right? You just observe everybody. So I just observed, and I just learned, and I analyzed behavior. What makes a successful CEO? What makes a successful ruler? What are their shortcomings? How does ego place into this? How do they motivate and lead countries? How do they motivate and lead teams? And it was an amazing experience. I also felt that I'd hit a ceiling in my professional career, was that, I was the go-to CLO for a leader, a visionary, a CEO that wants to achieve their goals. Why? Because I was the execution person. And again, it wasn't about law. It was about understanding commerciality, strategy, vision, execution, okay? And so I kind of got to this glass ceiling, I think, and I was really thinking that I've learned all of this knowledge from observation and being analytical. I've read every book there is. I've watched, I don't watch anything that's not going to really fuel me to see who is this ruler and what did they do? And how did they accomplish what they accomplished? And I was thinking, you know what? I would love to be CEO, but the glass ceiling is there, right? You're a CLO, you're always going to be the second person, you're always going to be the right hand to the CEO or the ruler. And then you look at the statistics, right? 5% globally are female CEOs. And I thought, is there a way that you could forge that? But anyway, it was COVID. I pretty much had my dream job in Saudi Arabia. I felt that my 20-odd years of experience had culminated to this role. I was super excited about it. But COVID hit, and I was, like all of us, it was like 24/7 in front of a screen, doing your Zoom calls or your team calls. And I thought, wow, this pandemic, and I felt it, and I don't know whether we all felt it, but I felt it, which was that there was this paradigm shift that was happening in the world. And the paradigm shift was this elevation of technology in terms of my parents are they've never used Zoom or Skype, and suddenly Baba at 86 had an iPhone,
Yeah.
and suddenly found me on Facebook. That was a scary moment. And I'm like, whoa, right? There's this paradigm shift happening. If you don't embrace technology, what happens? And you could see that with the Web 2 movement, which, as we all know, Web 2 social media, smartphones, access to data, as we constantly go in our lives. And the paradigm shift that happened in the pandemic just elevated this growth potential of Web 2. And I was like, okay, there's something happening here. And let me just sit down and really think about, and I think we all did. I think everybody during the pandemic thought about, what are we doing? What is the future and what are we doing? Hundreds of millions of people across the world lost their jobs. Everybody understood that to be successful, you had to have a digital brand, right? Everybody knew that to make any money, you had to be online. So there was this very strong paradigm shift that happened. But when I looked at the environment, there was really no one that was facilitating the paradigm shift that happened. And if you look at Generation Z, the pandemic brought against this revolution of the gig economy, right? That's never been happened before. You had Generation Z, 68% generation. You ask them what they want to be. My dad was like, doctor, dentist, lawyer. Generation Z, we want to be an entrepreneur. We want to be an influencer. We want to hold our own brand. But where is the technology that's willing to sustain that? So I remember I was in Riyadh under COVID lockdown. That was hard. It was really hard. And I had to take a step back and I said, okay, where do we go from here? So I said, okay, let's take it back to my base fundamentals. What do you know? Number one, my next role has to be CEO. I think I've hit a glass ceiling. I don't think it's going to happen. Number two, I know how to build billion-dollar corporations because I've done that my entire life for the CEOs and the rulers that I've worked for. Number three, the future is tech. Now, this is coming from a person that struggles with moving from one iPhone to the next iPhone, right? Let's be honest. I'm the most tech unsavvy person in the world, but I still felt the paradigm shift. And then I thought, okay, I've done what I was meant to do. Now, if you were to take a step back and think, what is there else for you to do? It was really about passion. And I was looking at the statistics and people and hearing stories. And I thought there has to be a better way for people to monetize. And not just monetize, but monetize passion, right? And I remember when I was thinking about leaving my, very high paid job that I'd worked 22 years to get, that was a scary journey because I remember one of my friends saying, so what happens? Where does your knowledge go? And it was such an interesting question because, before that, my knowledge used to go to either the role that I'm in or the people that I'm training or my team, etc. And I wondered, I said, well, where does it go? And then she says to me, you need to work on your social media, Instagram presence. And I was like, how am I going to do that? I'm not an influencer. I'm not the 1% of the people that can actually make money online. I looked at the technology infrastructure and the ecosystem. Who makes money? It's big tech. And I was like, this has to change. And that was the birth of Lyvely. So Lyvely, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. What we've built, and I've built it with the two most amazing, passionate co-founders, Dave Katudal and Anthony Matsaba, who's my CXO and my CTO. And it's so weird how the universe brings together people. And now we can talk about your tribe, right? Your people. Because before I've been like, oh, I just got to perform. And now it's like, oh, okay, energy, come. And, we have this collective vision and mission about revolutionizing tech. And what we mean by that is that there are hundreds of millions of people, content creators, independent professionals, businesses. If you look at the ecosystem right now, these people spend hours every day to make content. And the only people that benefit from the content that they make is big tech. So big tech has just exponentially grown right through the pandemic. Has anybody else made any really serious money? No, apart from the 1% of influencers or whatever, or the top 1% of YouTubers. We're talking about a generation that understands that in order for us to build a sustainable brand and to monetize, you need to be online. And yet tech has not done that. There has been no transition. So what we are going to do is we are, first of all, with a platform for the people. We are all about the person. What we want to do is revolutionize the way that people have a digital presence online, are able to build a brand, and are able to monetize. That's our promise. We're here for you. You control your content, you control how you monetize it. And then there's been this exponential shift between Web 2 and Web 3, right? Web 2 is in its own ecosystem. And we all know Web 2, we understand it, we're all in it, we're all vested in it, and that's great. But Web 2 is fundamentally owned by big tech. So the more time you spend on social media, the more money that they're making. Do you make any money? No, you're just wasting money and you're not pursuing your passion. You're not reading a book. You're not spending time with your peers. And this is the issue with Gen Z. So what we wanted to do was, okay, let's turn this right on its head. What does it take to build a platform that ultimately becomes your Web 2 intuitive, trusted platform where you can make money? Monetize your passion. Can you imagine what a world would be if you had more people making money and monetizing passion? I mean, it'd be a different place. Now, people think that if I was going to monetize passion, does that really end up in a paycheck? Because we've been governed to think like that, because we are governed to think that it's all about corporate. You need your job, your 9 to 5, whatever. Who are you making money in all of this? It's either a corporation or it's big tech. There's one of the two, right? We're like, no. Can you imagine? It is fervently true that when you pursue passion, money follows. And I think money is a really interesting concept because growing up, what was ingrained in me was work hard, make money. If you work hard, you make money. And I look back on my life and I now realize why it was so hard, right? Because I had to really work hard to make money because that was my narrative. And I tell you, when I took a step back and I really tried to understand money, and when you realize that money is energy, and you realize that if you were to follow and pursue your true purpose and your passion, and you really enjoyed that, money would follow, right? Money is energy. It's abundant. It is everywhere. But it's us that are like, oh, we need the paycheck. And it was difficult for me too. I gave up a huge corporate role to pursue a passion. And that's what we really need to instill with our platform is pursue your passion. We will give you the platform, the resources, the control. We'll give you everything. Just pursue your passion and monetize from it. And we really hope to just, be able to create a better experience and create abundance, because ultimately people's success will be ours.
And it sounds so exciting because also when you speak about passion, you speak about previous generations as well. Passion used to be a privilege.
Oh yeah,
in order
absolutely.
In order to pursue your passion, it was an absolute privilege in order to do that. And now what you're doing is transforming the psyche and changing the conditioning of how people have been going through the generations, right, with Lyvely?
Absolutely. And I think, you know what, the most pivotal shift that's going to happen for us is I want everybody on our platform that they become so successful that there is this pivotal shift in the universe that allows people and money to be attracted to passion. And that's why we're talking about revolutionizing tech and the way that people perceive their purpose and their passion, and that money is energy. And if we can do that, then we're really onto something. Of course, it's it's like Steve Jobs says, what is it? The craziest people in the world that think they can change the world are crazy, and they probably do. I mean, that's where we are. We're like between crazy and like, okay, we've got this. So yeah.
But crazy is where change comes.
Yeah,
Crazy
exactly.
is where change comes.
Yeah.
Now, I would love to, I could go on with you for days, I think, but I would love to ask you, and one question that's been going on in my mind this whole episode is, what would Farah now say to younger Farah? Is there anything in particular, if you were to meet her today and you were to sit down with her, you've achieved so much in your career, and to look back and what she's been through, is there anything that you would guide her and give her advice or?
What a question. Okay.
I just went Oprah on you.
I know, you just did Oprah on me. Oh, that's my dream, by the way, to be on Oprah.
Inshallah, one day.
I think it would be to enjoy the journey, because I never enjoy the journey. I think, for me, it was like, oh, I've got to do like 2.5 years here, and then I've got to do 3 years to go into corporate, and then I've got this one, I've got to do 3 years, and so for me, it was this constant focus and determination on where I needed to get to next, and I never really enjoyed the journey. So one would be enjoy the journey, because there's one life, and when you get to my age, you're like, damn, I wish I really enjoyed the journey. Okay. And second, I think it would be that to really embrace adversity. Don't push against it and just embrace it, because when you look back, and if you have that faith when you have adversity and you look back, you're actually going to understand that there was a reason for that adversity, and it was that adversity that puts you into a position. It's like, when you look back and you can connect all the dots, you're like, oh, that's why it happened. And therefore, it's entwined, right? Enjoy the journey and embrace the adversity. And I remember I've always said, it was like, whenever something, really horrible has happened, and there have been a lot of horrible things that happened in my life, was that I used to say, you know what, Farah, it's okay. This is a chapter in your life. This is a chapter in your life story. You're not writing a rom-com, right? You're a rock star, and there needs to be some drama, so it's okay. The thing is, write the chapter, and then the readers want to hear something a little bit more inspirational, so get through it and move on to the next chapter. So it's really about feeling the adversity, living it through, empowering through it, and understanding that, you know what? After the rain, the sun shines.
Beautiful. You are phenomenal, Farah. Your energy, we spoke about energy earlier, just being around you inspires me. This has been such a wonderful conversation to have with you, and I'm sure so many people have benefited from it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Women in Leadership, brought to you by HeronCode, the management consultancy for what happens next. For more information, you can visit HeronCode.com.